Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Out of Focus Tech. I'm Adam.
Now, Vic.
Hope everybody out there is having a good evening tonight. Tonight, we're going to hit off on a subject that we've kind of found some clickbait and attention getters on around the internet, and that is big companies leaving the cloud. You got any open thoughts on this, Vic?
You know, um, cloud has become such a big part of internet growing as a whole, and I'm just wondering what the big motivator is for companies to start moving their stuff back on, you know, on the premise.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna save my opinions for the end, but took an interesting turn for me, and I kind of want to see what you think at the end of this. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to jump into the first article here. Really, this is the big article from DHH back in late 2023. My apologies. That kind of kicked off the big hoopla, as it were, and that kind of got the grumblings going. So I'm not going to read the whole article. I will link the article in the show notes. I'm just going to hit the high points here. So, bottom line is, DHH wanted to migrate some of his applications off the cloud because in 2022 here they um, used a cloud budget of $3.2 million, um, which is a lot. Now, I don't honestly know all the things that they are running in the cloud to say whether that's a fair price or not. I'm just saying on the surface, $3.2 million. It's a lot of money. Um, and um, one of the things that they brought up right away was overpriced service contracts. So we'll get into that. They decided they want to move out of cloud. They invested $600,000 in capital into buying some Dell servers, bringing into their data centers, or what I believe is actually leased co-location data centers that they discussed later in the article. Um, anyway, spending $600,000 up front on a capital investment, they estimate they're going to save $7 million in the next 5 years over the cloud expenditure. Um,
That's crazy.
yeah, and it's a any way you slice it, we're talking about large chunks of money here. I'm honestly not familiar with the apps and services that they were running. They sell it's 37 37 Signals is the name of the company. And they have two big apps, Basecamp and Hey. I'm not really sure what either one of those are as far as like features and what they do. And I don't think it really matters because I mean we could really just be talking about uh a ginormous, I don't know, word processing application. I think what's brought out in this article is still valid regardless of the exact application or workload you are talking about. Um, so for a little bit less than a tenth of a 5 year savings, they're going to invest some capital investment up front and start migrating off the cloud. So for their so they're pulling uh, duh, 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 duh. They're pulling their workloads off the cloud. So they bought servers. Um, Total compute capacity 4,000 CPUs, 7,600 gigs of RAM. So what's that? Almost 8 terabytes of RAM, and 300 and almost 400 terabytes of NVMe storage. So it's fast, lots of compute. It can move stuff back and forth without issue. Um,
Yeah, I heard that. There's an article that I was looking into said that Dropbox actually moved all of their stuff, off the cloud, and they
yep. Um,
Yeah, you know,
I
that's
found some articles, nothing I even found one article that Netflix migrated a lot of stuff off of the cloud, um, but I was having a hard time I'm not saying the article was fake, I just couldn't find any, the article I found was way too broad, no good details in it, and I couldn't really find anything else to go along with it, so I kinda dropped that one, but I know that other companies have done it. Um, this one just, DHH just does a really good job of outlining the the process, and B, the why. Um, so, I think that it's worth looking at it this way. So, uh, in like 6 months, they moved because it says and in June it was done. They left the cloud. That in 6 months they were able to remove their compute footprint from the cloud. Um, duh, 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 and do it without interruption to the customers. And they're off of the cloud in June, and they're starting to see the savings in September. Um, and so from June to September, what's that? Four months of operations, they'd already secured $1 million in savings on their cloud bill. Um, that's
you
that's
know,
exponential rate of return, really.
that
Um,
kind of defeats the purpose of the purpose of the cloud was to save companies money, and
yeah,
now it's so expensive that companies can't afford the cloud option anymore.
yeah. Well, and that's what the next part is. He brings up here in the reserved instances where you prepay for a whole year in advance to get better pricing. As those started to expire, um, the the savings kept going up and up. He says here the bill just kept collapsing, and you can see in his nice little chart down here how their cost greatly shrink down quickly for all these compute services. Let's see, they had some search optimization, some databases, several different kinds of EC2 um, machines, some basic compute plans, Elasticache, EC2, like some networking components. Like they had a good bit of stuff, that's going to be affected by this.
It's
So
really crazy that people are moving back now. That cloud computing has gotten so expensive that it's actually cheaper to just host your own stuff.
mm, yeah, maybe.
One of the big benefits of the cloud was scalability.
Hmm.
So you don't have to have 20 servers online if you don't have to. But like a downside of moving your stuff off the cloud is you'll have to have those 20 servers online all the time.
Right. Um, Yeah, and it's some of the stuff he brings up in here, like one of the things he brings up is why don't you just optimize your cloud bill instead? Well, he's saying that they did that very heavily with the dedicated team, and we're still not able to get it down to what they felt like was a reasonable amount. Um, so everything, I think this is going to really feed into my point that I'm trying to wait to the end to make, but there's a trade-off for everything, and there's a time and a place for everything. And I'm gonna leave it at that for now. Um, so one of the things he also addresses is bigger team payroll by bringing it back on prem. He says right off the bat that the same people that were managing their cloud infrastructure are also managing their on prem. There was no needed personnel change. So that expense did not change; it maintained the same, whatever it was. Um, he brings up, if you had written the cloud native application instead, and he brings up that if you have to rewrite stuff for lift and shift to the cloud, it's pretty easy to bring it back off the cloud. One of the things he does warn against though is watch out for the serverless and microservices architecture, because very quickly writing that kind of application, you can get become married to a cloud service provider and their way of doing it, because lambdas and SQS and SNS topics are all very different than the Azure offerings for functions and message queuing and their service offerings. And it's not necessarily one for one compatible in code line. While the underlying JavaScript or Ruby or whatever flavor you would want to write the actual logic in may be, the infrastructure that you have to wrap it in can be completely different. So he acknowledges that and he warns against it. And um, the way that they did it was that they never went to a serverless type architecture. They used uh, a lot of containers,
Okay.
which allowed them to avoid that kind of vendor lock. Um,
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that maybe uh, for large companies, running your own servers, you know, a few years ago was probably like a you know such a big task. You think about like maybe now with with AI and automation that they're able to just do all the things that used to be that used to take a long time, but now they need less people to do it, so they can afford to you know have all their own data
yeah.
back.
Well, that's one of the next things I was going to is like one of the questions he poses here. Does this mean you're building your own data centers? And this is where he brings up that no, aside from the big Fang type industries, that's just not many people have their own data centers anymore. They have co-residency data centers, and this is their service provider that they use is Deft, because they brings up like who's pulling the network cables, doing racking, and all that stuff. So they're still outsourcing some of the infrastructure management that they were outsourcing when they were in the cloud, that they were with AWS, but that's really not relevant. Because they're still paying a service fee to Deft to do this. He calls it out as white glove service a couple times in here. Um, but to do the rack and stacks, power, that's where the power bill comes from, your cooling, all those fun things. That's all built into that. Um, so he brings up reliability. Um, and he's saying that they're getting these savings. They have two geographically dispersed regions, I guess, with Deft, and was it in this article? Um, yeah, he compares the reliability they had in the cloud to the reliability they have now running their own hardware. Um, Somewhere there's a couple articles where he wrote and then provided updates for. And one of them I read, they were even talking about. It's in the next one here. Talking about international performance. So right now they have two data centers in the U.S. and an international. Wow, I don't know why that word just got so hard. So an international CDN or content delivery network, um, that they're using to get their content closer to the end users for global scalability. Um, he said it's fundamentally it's the same, um, but the footprint is just different. And with that, like I get it, like maybe somebody else's CDN can support your application better than Amazon's out of the box CDN. I there's 100 different CDNs out there, but maybe I don't know, Cloudflare can distribute your special kind of application better than AWS. Just making that up, but it does gives you the flexibility when you're not when you're vendor agnostic as much as you can be. You get to broaden your selection factor. Um,
Yeah, when I was looking stuff up, one of the things that stuck out was said that 42% of all U.S. companies are considering moving at least half of their cloud stuff,
Hmm.
back to their
Yep.
location.
Oh yeah.
That's gonna be. Yeah, I wonder how AWS and Microsoft and
Hmm.
and all those guys. I, I'm thinking about stock. Stock's going to take a hit if like 42% were to just move half of their stuff out.
Yep.
And then what does that mean for the people who are working cloud stuff remotely?
Yeah, I think the remote stuff. I'm not too worried about that. That you can manage a lot of that regardless of what data center it's sitting in remotely. You know, as long as the company and data owner is providing outside access to those resources, it's no different. Um, realistically, the only thing that changes probably is the console in which you log into. You know, might get away from logging into the AWS console and seeing the branding everywhere to just RDPing back into a company server somewhere to do your development tools. Like it, I'm not too worried about that. I don't think that changes anything. Um, in fact, I think it might actually help because it would help um, redistribute the needs the for the skill sets there. Instead of when they're all when everybody's going to the cloud and Google, Microsoft, and uh, AWS are really the only ones maintaining. I don't know MySQL's in the front of me, and those people are hiring 90% of the MySQL engineers because that's really the only place it's being used, because it's being offered as a service. Well, when everybody else is going back out to when they start pulling it back on prem and back into their data centers, well, guess what? Now they don't have access to that MySQL engineer, so they need to hire one. And so it's going to help redistribute that and open up that job market. And because if AWS has got 1,000 MySQL engineers, they're just going to keep overloading them rather than add buy or hire an extra one. So I think it's going to open up the job market more so because you're going to decentralize the need for that skill set. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think cloud adoption it may be it may be slowing down, but I
Yeah.
don't think away. I mean,
No, I don't either. So DHH wraps this up with if cloud is so expensive, why did we ever go there? And he calls them straight out like it was flashy marketing brochures, right? Economies of scale, ease of use, and blah blah blah. Which there are there is some truth in those statements. It's not all made up lies. There are some truths in there, but it's apparently my light died. I'm gonna fix my light. It's it's use case based, and it's it, uh it depends. Like so much in the IT world, it comes down to it depends because you have to take your unique situation, your unique product, your unique delivery, and everything about what your technology stack is doing and compare all of your needs to come up with the right answer for what you're doing.
I don't
Um,
know if the AWS service, but you think that maybe like those AWS, was it the AWS architect or solutions architect? I'm starting to think now that maybe those guys are the ones that kind of they put the plan together for you, and then they sell you on the product. You know,
yeah, there's definitely truth in that statement, and but that's the way it works with any technology. When we want to buy new hypervisor hosts at to stand up new infrastructure, we go out to, three different vendors, and every one of them tries to architect and sell us a pre-made solution straight back without us putting thought into it.
Yeah, so
Uh,
and they know what they're doing. Just
yeah, they
make it.
know what they're doing to make their product meet 85% of 85 the 85% of the requirements for 85% of the people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, come with us. We'll do all the work. You won't have to
Right.
do a thing.
And that's a good segue. So before I make my spill, I will say I found three YouTube videos that really dive into this. Two of them are by the Primogen, um, where he covers that original article, and I think it was this one, the follow up where DHH shows that over after 12 or 18 months, they went from the expected $7 million in savings over 5 years to $10 million of savings, even after investing additional capital. So, and it really breaks it down. So, if you want to see how the numbers compare, I encourage you to go watch these two videos from the Primogen. He goes into them really good, and I agree with a lot of his points that I'm going to kind of get to here in a minute. Code Cloud also does a pretty good job breaking this down. Um, and brings up a lot more of the basic points. But he has a slightly different perspective on it than the Primogen. I think both of them are right. They're just looking at it slightly from two different uh, vantage points, and it's good to have that um, differencing of opinions on your input. So I encourage you to watch them all and get what you can out of it. Now, this DHH article seems to be the one that kicked off all of the buzz. Is it this one company? I keep forgetting 37. What I say it was? Um, 37 Signals. I don't know why I can't remember that. But when 37 Signals made this move, and he started posting it, like he was kind of the first one to really come out and go against the grain. And he never says the cloud is bad. He says the cloud is not for them. And in some of the other articles he makes, he does bring up a point to highlight some areas that the cloud is good for. Startups, you don't know what your workload is going to be, or you have a workload that you know is not going to be predictable anytime in the near future, whether it's a startup or um, you're just not sure exactly how it's going to run. That's where you tap into that economy of scale and ease of use. Like, excuse me, if it's, if you're not sure if you need one or 100, you start with 10. And if it's really easy to add two at a time, it makes sense until you get to a point that you now have the information you need to make solid business decisions on. Because when you're starting out, do you want to spend $1 million in hardware to find out you only needed to spend 10,000?
Yeah, I mean, once you know what you need, it
Yep.
probably is cheaper to just go with yourself. Because
Yeah.
going with the cloud provider, they're going to try to sell you every product that they have, and
Right. Because that's
probably
their job.
you don't even need it.
Yep. And so I look at this with I have two main points I want to make on this. One, uh, the Primogen said it, and I'm not sure whether it was something out of DHS articles or his. So we'll go back and watch that video. But it came from one of them too. Was that what you're seeing is that's I think that the spike in cloud, you're starting to see that level off now. Like it has happened long enough now that the information is out there and people are able to make better decisions on it. And you are starting to see people that are pulling some of their workloads out of the cloud. Maybe not all of it. I personally think that I agree. We've hit that. We've gone past that spike. We're going to go on a little bit of a downtrend um, for a number of different reasons, and then it's going to mellow out, and you're going to find yourself kind of where I thought it would all be in the beginning, in that hybrid environment where the cloud's going to do some really good things for some good people, but not for all the things for all the people. So you're going to have people running some parts of their business that are cloud based, some parts stay on prem. You're going to have some businesses that never touch the cloud. You're going to have some businesses that are all cloud. You're going to have that smattering. And but that's good. That's what we want. That's what's going to keep our technology options evolving. If everybody goes to cloud, nobody's making servers that aren't made to be, cloud hypervisors, that kind of thing. So that's that was point number one. Point number two, and this is the big one that I wanted to make. This brings up the importance of doing your trade studies. When you are getting ready to make a business decision and change technologies, update technologies, look at all your options, take your time, get multiple opinions, and look at different ways to architect the same, or even to architect solutions to make the outcome the desired deliverable you want, and don't let the solutions dictate the deliverable. There's a bunch of idioms out there, but there's many ways to skin a cat. You can boil an egg 9 different ways. There's more than one way to sink a ship. uh there's always more than one way to it, to an end goal. And if your deliverable is just to deliver um an app that picks today's t-shirt color for you, then make your solutions fit that deliverable. Don't don't let solutions, what comes up on a brochure, start to alter that. And don't be afraid to try things in small scale. um you can start on, just for example, to me, the easiest thing would be like, all right, I'm not sure what's exactly going to happen here with my t-shirt app. So I'm going to build it in a vendor agnostic way and start on the cloud, whether you start with AWS, Linode, Azure, uh, Akamai, any of them. And you know what? Maybe I'll start container based, because then I can do Docker and stay open sourced. You do Docker and Kubernetes. And then you know what? When I think I got it going well, if I want to start trying to see what it's like to run from an on-prem location, I'll start putting some Docker resources on servers in a data center, add those to my Kubernetes cluster, start migrating that workload, see what it looks like, and see what my cost savings are. Um, sometimes you can run a server in a data center for cheaper kilowatt power than what AWS can get. Or maybe you get a better rate on the white glove service, and you get a better um, SLA on drive replacement and things like that. Like there's so many intricacies that go into this that you can't, when you get locked in and you're making business decisions based on just your sales brochures and just vendor recommendations, you get locked into something like what DHH is talking about, where you're in long-term commitments with a solution or a product that's not really working for you. When you're scoping all this stuff out and you're doing your research, even if you're hiring consultancies and like external consultancies, third parties, look at their portfolios of what they've done. Look for ways to find that. I'll call it's a bias, because sometimes they get better deals from certain vendors to help push this solution over this solution. Now they'll sell you, you know, they're glad to deliver you both a Dell and an HP server, but they might get a better deal from Dell, so they might push a little harder to try and get you to buy that Dell.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, so that's just things that you had to keep in mind for, but you have to do your homework. If you go too deep, too fast, too often, you're going to wind up losing millions of dollars.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. You hit that one right there. It's I so when I was looking this stuff up, from 2003 to 2004, AWS profits actually increased by 13%.
Mhm.
Microsoft, they did the same thing. They went from 21.5 billion to no 21.5 billion to 25.9 billion.
Mhm.
That's a lot of change. I I just don't see that slowing down. I mean, I'd like to see what it looks like at the end of 2025.
Mm, yeah, I don't. I think you won't see such big growth percentages, but it's not going away. I don't think we're going to wake up in a world tomorrow where everybody is retracting back to on-prem. That's that's unrealistic. But I think that what you're going to start to see is more people taking the time and doing their studies and really doing the cost analysis, um, over what it costs. Because like when I was taking the AWS search, even the Azure search, one of the big things they compare in the beginning, I always talk about is TCO, your total cost of ownership, and they compare operational expense and capital expense. You know, is it better to spend $1 million up front and get it back over 5 years for capital expense, or would you rather pay $200,000 a month for 5 years? Um, there are times that the argument for either one could be made, but you have to sit down and crunch the numbers. And I think the most important thing is expectation management. The cloud is not the magic end all be all, and there are other options out there.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that people just they don't want to get locked in again. For any of these long term contracts, like we just got out of this 5 year contract. Maybe we're done. We're not doing this again.
Yeah. Uh, I I think I don't know. I'm torn because part of me I get aggravated in the modern technology field with everything becoming a monthly subscription. Like even on the enterprise side, it's like they want 19.95 a month for you know every month instead of offering you a deal. But if you want to cut a deal and uh, get away from that monthly subscription paying, you got to sign up for a 5 year um, commitment to see any kind of break. And it's like, uh, at some point, it's like, all right, well, like I'll try it for 6 months at the monthly rate, and then if I like it, I'm good. But in 3 months or 2 years, if you're not innovating at a pace that meets my product, well, now I'm realistically losing money because I'm paying for a service that's not doing what I need anymore. Or if you decide to take your service in a direction that no longer aligns with my needs, I've wasted that money because I've made that commitment to you. So I've either got to do pay to get out of that contract, or suck it up and pay for something I'm not going to use or be completely limited by, instead of being able to move on.
Yeah, you know, not a. I don't really know. You think it's actually cheaper, or it's going to be cheaper to do it yourself, or companies should just stay with the cloud?
You got to do your research. Um, that from from provider to provider, everybody offers something different and at a different rate. Compare what they charge to what they offer, and make sure what they offer meets your needs.
Yeah,
Sometimes, and also remember, sometimes you get what you pay for. You know, penny pinching isn't always the best option either. When you're paying for that 99 cent a month rack, but it takes them 3 months to go change a bad drive, that's not good business either.
I mean, with how technology is moving so fast, I mean, for a website, I mean, really any kind of website, you can damn near run almost anything off a Raspberry Pi right now.
Yeah, but
Well,
it comes down to the age old question: you're going to invest one of two things, money or time. Do you pay to let somebody else deal with the headaches, or do you invest the time to build the pie, install the packages, worry about security, port forwarding, SSL certs, and all that other stuff for an initial investment of, say, $50 for a Raspberry Pi. And then maybe what, 99 cents a month or something for a Cloudflare cert or something like that.
Yeah.
Or do you pay the $5 a month and, your $60 a year, whatever, host it on, GoDaddy or Hostinger or something like that, and let them worry about it all.
Yeah, it's very, very true. Very true. It really depends on your needs.
Yep. And then when you scale that up to business, is it worth paying? It looks good on paper that you could move everything to a data center and potentially host everything, but do you have to hire people to do that? Because that's a bigger expense that has all those hidden costs. Or are you better off to take the sticker shock and pay the $1,000 a month to let that service be a managed service by a cloud provider, where all you have to do is provide a spreadsheet of data of what you want, and that's what shows up on the internet?
You know,
Your choice.
hosting your own stuff. I mean, you also got to think about, how much extra equipment are you gonna have on hand? The,
Yeah.
20 hard drives, or 10 extra servers, or
Hmm.
routers. So I mean,
Yeah,
it,
that's reliability and um all that. So it's all things to talk about, and it's a big thing. If you ever get bored, look up KPI matrices for technical decisions and start digging through some of those. Um, you're talking about, like, I did one the other day, just to replace a phone model, was 300 lines of KPIs, on an Excel spreadsheet, that are, requirements that in some way that have to be graded, whether they're met or not, but they have to be evaluated against. And that's just for a phone that you can pick up and go, hello.
hmm, yeah.
So
Well, I don't see this going anywhere for a while. It may slow
no,
down.
it may slow down. It's going, it's just like everything else, 20 years ago, they said email would never last, and here we are living by it. So, but I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks on this subject. I encourage you to go watch the primetime videos, the Primeagen and Code Camp. Just, I I think they both had really good points of view on this. Um, and I am looking forward to see how this changes. And I would like to hear everybody else's opinion. But for now, I think we're going to put this one to rest and let it go from there.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, everybody, have a good night. Thanks for joining in.
All right. See you guys next time.